Hello everybody, it's Louise here, and welcome to my first episode of the A-TREE-ciation podcast, where I'll be talking about trees, and, you guessed it, nothing but trees. Now, the first one I'm going to talk to you about is the Rowan Tree, or if you prefer, the mountain ash. This tree is personally my favourite of all, mainly because of all the great stories associated with it. I'll tell you more of those later. If you're wondering what a rowan looks like, then Google is, well, your best friend, but also is the tree on the screen at the moment. If you cannot see it, then rowans have smoothish bark, which varies in colour from bronze to silver. They also have dainty leaves, elongated oval in shape, and bright red berries in the autumn. A fun fact, these berries are rumoured to keep away evil spirits and mischievous pixie magic, and are often planted in graveyards as a result. If you're into the whole witchcrafty thing like me, with all the pendants and crystals and charms and stuff, then I'd pick some and leave them to dry for about 6 weeks. Then either thread them on a necklace or stash them in a jar on your windowsill to keep away the fairies. What you've got to watch out for, though, is mould. It's your worst enemy. I got an infestation once. The whole box turned furry and had to throw away the batch. Do not, at any point, try to ingest them, and always wash your hands very thoroughly after handling it. Because if you eat them, they will make you very, very sick. I mean it. Do not eat them. You've been warned. Rowan trees produce their berries in early September and are, strangely enough, part of the rose family. Inhabiting the mild and chillier regions of the northern hemisphere, specifically Asia and northern Europe, they tend to grow in craggy outcrops, such as the Himalayas, hence the name mountain ash. Interestingly, they are of no relation to real ash trees, so I try to avoid using the term mountain ash where I can. Their leaves look similar, but that is where the similarities end. Rowan trees are depicted as the trees of life, with this title dating back to 1000 BC, when the Celts of Britain decided that it symbolised courage, wisdom, and protection. The Celts would have these trees, known as couronnes, tattooed into their skin with the blue woad dyes to utilise the properties previously mentioned in battle. The tree of life is classically drawn in a circle where all the roots are linked to the branches by braids, showing the strength of the links between every living thing in the universe. More modernly, when the steampunk aesthetics adopted this concept for their own style, the tree of life would be worn as a copper or bronze pendant around the neck on a leather tie. If you want to buy some, I'd suggest having a snoop around Etsy. I'm not partial to Etsy myself, I think everything there is so overpriced. But, good for you if you want one. This leads us to the first of the stories about the Rowan Tree. In Celtic folklore, the goddess Hebe had many treasures, one of which was the chalice of youth, said to keep you young forever and bring back abundance. When she lost it, she was utterly distraught, and she sent an eagle to bring it back. The noble bird fought really hard to return it, and with every droplet of blood it shed in its escape from the battle, the Rowan Tree grew, with the symmetrical leaves to represent feathers, and red berries to commemorate the blood that was lost. I think this is so interesting because when the eagle bled, its cliché characteristics kind of leaked into the tree itself. The bravery gave it dense wood, the valiant behaviour gave the trees its protective nature. When we still feel this, if we look at the Rowan Tree 1,000 years later, it's amazing to see how folklore seems to live forever, and that any stories we tell today might be retold in somebody else's podcast after millennia has passed, and we will have no idea whatsoever, because we'll all be dead. Sorry to put a dampening on mood, but it's true. We won't know, but we'll still be told. The crimson of these berries is generally associated with protection, creation, and life. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but the berries also have a pentagram engraved in the bottom. The pentagram is an ancient symbol of protection also, another nod to the witchcrafty thing here. But if the top is pointed down, it becomes inverted and represents Satanism and the occult. Now, going back to Rowan trees, the Druids would use the bark and berries to dye their garments they wore during lunar ceremonies. They also grew near some standing stone circles and burial sites to protect the dead with their berries and their white fairy flowers. Important events would often take place right under the boughs of a rowan. Right, I'm sorry, I'll stop yapping about the Celts for now. Size-wise, they are really quite small as trees grow. They tend to grow about 15 metres only, although the world record is 23.5 metres, which isn't bad going in the end. They also can live to about 200 years old, which isn't especially odd compared to some other trees like oaks or baobabs that can live for thousands, but it's still pretty decent. I kind of wish I could live to 200 years old, but take what you can get. Rowan trees also have great influences in Scandinavia, especially when the Vikings were in power. If they grew out of a crevice in some rocks or mountainside, say, these trees were referred to as flying rowans. The Vikings were a superstitious bunch, also, believing that runes carved into the wood had divination powers. Protection was also afforded by tucking sprigs of this tree into the collars of cattle to ward off hexes. The second story of this tree is when the Norse god Thor was being swept into the underworld by a river. A rowan tree bent over the stream for Thor to clutch onto, saving him from death. Even a god can die, especially in Norse mythology. Strange, but it's the way that people's minds work, so hey. Also in this mythology, the first of womankind was said to come from a rowan, as men came from a regular ash. The word rune, even, is also commonly believed to have the same root as rowan, linking back to its Norse heritage again. Rowan berry jam is very popular in the north of Scotland these days. Sorry just to change the subject so sharply, but here we go. Traditionally served with game. Again, I implore you not to eat them raw or turn them into jam at home because I really don't want you to get sick, because I don't have insurance coverage, so please only buy from professionals. Medicinally, the berries were used to prevent scurvy, as they are naturally full of vitamin C, and the tannins, acids and sugars can have a diuretic effect, which basically means helping you wee, if you had to Google that term like I did. Please do not eat the berries. I implore you once again. The berries can also make strong alcohols. Rowan wine is popular in the Highlands, and the Welsh enjoy turning them into ales and beers, and the Irish flavour mead with them. There is no end to the fruitfulness of these little red berries, excuse the pun. When the leaves are dried, they have a very rich, sweet smell, but it isn't very strong. Inhaling this scent is supposed to clear the mind and open up new perspectives. A walking stick of rowan wood will supposedly bring enlightenment on your journey, which is nice if you're feeling a bit confused. I could definitely use some of that. I'd always recommend taking a walk in a forest if you are mentally tired or have a lot on your mind. It is my version of a therapy. And if you have a rowan stick with you, then so much the better. Now the rowan has a zodiac also, associated with Pisces and Aquarius, the fish in the water jug. If you are born between January the 21st and February the 17th, then the rowan is your birth tree. It can indicate that you are good with people, easy to approach, and can diffuse awkward situations. You have a mind that tends to speculate on the greater questions of the universe, but sometimes you can have trouble putting your thoughts into the right words, God knows I do, which can sometimes give people the wrong impression. When they get to know you, however, they will appreciate your quieter exterior and the passionate insides, your ability to stand alone in a crowd, and the fresh perspectives that you bring to a conversation. You are always on the lookout for ways to move forwards, to lead, and to create your ideal world. Thank you guys all for listening. This is my first ever podcast, so I really appreciate your support and hope it wasn't too boring. And please consider subscribing for similar content. See you next time.